constituents. The other folks we bring in, I mean, we are a very close-knit family. There aren't too many egos in that room. They're checked at the door. We have a great product, and that's important. So all I have to do is get you to one of our places to see where your money goes and to see where the money of your friends and colleagues and business associates go. And you're a believer. You see that, 90% of that dollar is going to get to the kids. You see what we're doing. You touch it, you feel it, you smell it, and it's all great stuff.
And there are a lot of executive directors in the room. What if you had the insights to maintain relationships? Because just to preface my question, I find that a lot of you could go out and get a wonderful board member on the board, but how do you maintain, how do you preserve that relationship from the executive director standpoint? Because it's so critical.
Oh, but I don't know. We communicate a lot. I can't answer that. I don't know. It's just we are who we are, and you either fit in or you don't fit in, and there's not too many folks that have come through those doors that we've asked that don't fit in. And it truly is how do you maintain a relationship with your brother or sister? I don't know. It's family.
I'd say, what we've done, especially as we've transitioned our board, and I think years ago we had as many as 40 or 50 people representing different aspects of the community on our board when it was back in the service board days. Today we have about 24 board members. We're shooting to get to 30 or 35 because I think we need that fundraising capacity. But we've gotten a lot more selective, and we really challenge people with their commitment. We've never used before, but we're going to begin using this year a written statement of commitment from the board to talk about what am I going to give personally, what am I going to get, what are my sources, what sponsorships am I going to participate in, and what events am I going to participate in, and use that as a vehicle to have ongoing dialogue during the year. I'm thrilled that we have people on our board who are excited to be on our board just because of the mission of the American Red Cross. And it's, when you're front and center on the news, whether it's in Haiti or elsewhere, it's easy to kind of get reconnected to that. We also at our board meeting have what we call a mission moment. And we'll bring in somebody whose house is burned down, or somebody whose life was saved through CPR or lifeguard training. And we'll have them speak for 10 or 15 minutes at our board meetings. It gives people a real sense of connection to what we do. The people we generally serve in our community on a day-to-day basis are not necessarily in the same demographic or geography as the people that we get our money from. And that's often a challenge. We are often touched, as a lot of your charities are, by that direct connection of a child or a relative who needs the services that charity provides. So in many cases, we are trying to draw money from areas on a truly charitable basis to serve other areas. All with the understanding that, it's sort of like paying it forward, because at some point we're going to have a large disaster here. At some point, your house in a wealthy neighborhood may actually be part of a disaster, whether it's a windstorm or a mudslide or a wildfire. And the Red Cross needs to be there to help you. And so your contribution now may help you directly or indirectly in the future. And I think those kinds of connections are what keep our board engaged. And we're very, very selective about making sure that people who are on our board want to be on the board and want to be on the board for the right reason.
Sarah, did you have a question?
No, you answered it.
Thank you. I have a comment, because I deal a lot with boards, but having a special event allows you to expand your fundraising capacity in that you can bring in people that are not board members to help you raise money. So I love my event committees, and especially when you have an honoree involved, it makes it so much easier, because then you bring in the people, and I always like to have my honoree identify somebody that I can work with. And they have those own relationships, and then you don't know what's going to happen at an event. So when I do events, I spend a lot of time what's actually going to be happening on stage and all those kinds of things. And I'll use another example. One of my clients is the Fulfillment Fund. So we do this event every year, and we raise about $1.5 million, $2 million. And one year, it was for Peter and Megan Chernin. And Peter was at News Corp still, and the number 2 guy, right under Rupert. So what I did is I drafted a letter for them, because I like doing a pre-sale letter, pre the invitation. And I had all of the guys send it to their list on their stationery, not the nonprofit stationery. And I also have all of the responses go back to their offices because I wanted all those people to know that they would see what it is they were going to do. And then I had somebody pick up the money. So we took a $2 million fundraiser and turned it into $4.7 million. But the reason I bring this up about the churn-ins, and also about when you're looking at your audience, out of that dinner, there were three people that had never been to the event before that were so taken by what was happening on stage and what they learned that evening that they became board members the following year. So it's a lot of cultivation. In fact, that's how Megan Chernin became a board member, was because when Rupert Murdoch was honored years before, she called them the next day and said, I have to hear more about what it is you're doing. So I think it's really important. I'm always, when I go to I think people buy tables as opposed to tickets. I find that it's easier to sell high-end. Is that the person that I've sold the table to knows everything about what's happening. They've got all the written materials, they've received the phone calls. The other 8 people at that table know nothing. So we spend a lot of time figuring out how we're going to impact the other 8 people and let them learn about the charity. So we work closely with our clients to do that. And I can't tell you the amount of board people that have come out of special events.
Right. Yes, question in the back, Ellen? Yes.
Well, I was just listening to all of you, and I think you guys are so right, especially you, Judy, because I fund my own foundation, so I'm not raising money, but I am a donor. And I'll tell you, what impresses me so much and what, generates me to donate again is a very personal thank you note, not just the letter, the tax exempt letter, but a note on the bottom, something personal. Because I think that it's really important when you're raising money to make that donor feel like they have made a difference in someone's life. And, your ideas are great about raising the money, but once you get that donor in your hand, you want to keep them. So that's what I would add to make them feel important, like they have made a difference in somebody's life. There you go.
I think to sort of anchor that point, I think I heard from a very successful fundraiser that, typically, there's some obviously exceptions to the rule, but people give to people, and they're not just giving to an organization. And I think that's a wonderful point to really anchor home, because it's really the core point, quite frankly, in terms of the charity world, the sectors, that this is a human connection that people have, and that if you develop and enhance their experience and your relationship, that's where the power is. And not everybody is meant to give $100,000 for a table, but they might be able to afford $6,000, or they might be able to afford $10. But if you create the connections, and those connections sustain over a period of time, this is what a lot of these organizations have been able to do over time, then you have something that's sustainable. But a lot of the fledgling organizations have not been able to do that with endurance, and therefore it's this constant struggle to find new donors, new connections, new relationships. So if there's anything that I would recommend is strongly focus on your relationships, like Pamela said. Really connect with the people that are involved donating to your organizations, because they're the ones that are going to be there down the road for you. And it's much easier to maintain and preserve a relationship rather than constantly building new relationships. I want to switch gears for a second, because Jeff brought up the Text to Give campaign, and I think there are a lot of interesting things that came around that. I think it's generally an interesting topic, and probably several of you around the room are interested about Text to Give. And I don't know if maybe, Jeff, you can just kind of describe how you guys activated the effort, built the structure, the internal infrastructure to be able to engage in a campaign like that. I think it's interesting.
Okay, Amy, I warned you when I call out again. One of the things that was surprising to me was that we'd actually launched our initial texting campaign during Katrina. And I don't know if anybody knew that. I certainly didn't know that. But we managed to raise $120,000 during Katrina through texting. Now, that was 2005, and texting was sort of early stages getting big, but it was pretty limited. And